ever met. But it's his relationship with his mother that you will remember. Plus, the robots making marble masterpieces in Italy.
As a kid growing up in Chicago, there was one horror movie I was too scared to watch. It was called Candyman. But did you know that the movie Candyman was partly inspired by an actual murder? Listen to Candyman, the true story behind the bathroom mirror murder, wherever you get your podcasts.
The CBS News original 60 Minutes opens its archives.
Syria, which is whole and that meets the aspirations of its people, that's secure and it's stable, can make a huge difference in the Middle East.
Yeah, I'm looking for
issue these pardons.
These people have been there, how long is it, 3 or 4 years?
Right.
This is a chance for President Joe Biden and President-elect Donald Trump to do something different and to show that they are capable of bringing Austin home.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. We begin with political unrest in Syria. President Bashar al-Assad's rule has come to an end. He has fled to Russia, where he will now live in exile. Tonight, some refugees are streaming home and political prisoners are getting their first taste of freedom. The big question, what's next for the country that has long been gripped by civil war? Over the weekend, President-elect Trump weighed in on the conflict on social media, saying, quote, "The United States should not have anything to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved." Our MTS Tayyab is following the latest from Turkey near the border with Syria.
Well, the scenes in the capital, Damascus, are still astonishing to see. The fact that we have rebels in the capital, in fact, some of them inside the presidential palace, others out in the Umayyad Mosque, one of the most famous and important holy sites in Syria, some of them shooting their guns in the sky with celebratory gunfire. 2 weeks ago, few would have believed scenes like that ending what has been perhaps one of the most brutal civil wars of our time. 13 years, over 500,000 people killed, 5 million Syrians displaced abroad, 10 million internally displaced. Bashar al-Assad, the son of Hafiz al-Assad, who together over the years have ruled this country for over 54 years with an iron fist, with a level of brutality that is frankly indescribable. That is now over. Now, many people are asking, what is the future for Syria? When you look at the rebels who are in charge now, at least nominally in the capital, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, many fear that these are Islamists who want to impose some sort of religious rule over the country. However, there have been signals from their leader, a man by the name of Jalani, suggesting that he wants to bring Syrians together regardless of their religion or their ethnicity, something that has long divided this nation. This also poses a question for world leaders in Western capitals, from Washington to Paris to London to Brussels. Do they recognize these rebel factions who are now in Damascus? Is there some sort of UN-mandated plan? Whatever the case, for Syrian people who have suffered so much for so long, many believe that this is the turning of a page, hoping that this is the dawn of a new era in their country, which has suffered so greatly for so long under the Assad regime, which is now gone. Back to you.
MTS Tayyab, thank you. Earlier today, I discussed the upheaval in Syria with White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby. I began by asking him what role the Biden administration now has in Syria's future.
We believe that we can be an important interlocutor, if you will, through the UN, a UN-led process, as well as with counterparts in the region, including communications with some of these opposition groups to try to help bring about a transition to a type of governance in Syria that can actually meet the aspirations of the Syrian people. And for as long as he's commander-in-chief, he means to continue to use America's convening power and leadership on the world stage to bring that about.
This all, of course, puts a spotlight on American journalist Austin Tice, who the president said that he believes he is alive. What is that based off of?
Well, that continues to be our assumption. We have no indication to the contrary. I think I'll need to leave it at that in terms of information that we're looking at. But we know that the Tice family has been waiting an awful long time, and we share their deep concerns about Austin. And as the president said yesterday, we're going to continue to work very, very hard to bring him home. The events that unfolded over the weekend in Damascus may present an opportunity to get a little bit more information about where he is, what condition he's in, and what we may be able to do to get him home. I don't know that for sure. We're not certain of anything right now, except that we're going to continue to see what we can do to bring him home.
But right now, no one knows where he is.
I'm not aware that we have any specific information about his actual whereabouts or condition. We have no indication, as I said earlier, that he's not still alive. So we're going to work under that assumption, and we're going to do what we can to get him home.
As you know, in less than 2 months, a new administration is coming in. How have you briefed or worked with the transition when it comes to Syria?
The new incoming National Security Advisor, Congressman Waltz, has been in touch with Mr. Sullivan, our National Security Advisor. They've had numerous conversations. We've done everything we can to keep them up to speed, not just on what's going on here over the course of the last 48 hours or so, but our ceasefire efforts between Israel and Lebanon, and our continued efforts to get a hostage deal with Hamas to get the hostages home from Gaza. So we have kept Mr. Waltz informed. There have been other conversations with incoming Trump officials, and obviously we look forward to when the transition team gets fully staffed and is able to actually come to the facility here to do what we can to continue to get them the context they need.
And how confident is the president in the incoming president's ability to work in making sure there are no risks to American interests here?
Well, the president is going to respect President-elect Trump's prerogative here in terms of what foreign policy objectives he's going to implement and change. That's going to be up to the incoming team, and we recognize that. I would say a couple of things. Number one, to your earlier question, we're going to do everything we can to make sure they have the information they need to make the best decisions. And number two, in the time that he has left, President Biden still is the commander-in-chief. He's still the president of the United States, and he's going to continue to execute and implement the foreign policy that he has been doing for the last 4 years, which is based on values and principles and American leadership and engagement on the world stage. And that engagement, I think, is for all the world to see in terms of how things transpired in Syria yesterday as a result of an outgrowth of our assertive foreign policy and supporting allies and partners, but also going forward.
And Assad is believed to be now in Russia.
Yeah.
President-elect Trump said that Russia is a weakened state.
They are.
How does this impact everything going on, and especially our interest in Ukraine?
It's hard to see specifically how Assad's presence in Moscow is going to affect what we're doing with Ukraine. I mean, I would say, first of all, Russia needs to be held to account for the support that they gave Assad over the last 14 years. And we ought to be asking the Russians some pretty tough questions about why they've decided to harbor now a brutal dictator who killed millions of his own people, including with chemical weapons. As for Ukraine, they're still active fighting in the east. They're still active fighting around Kursk. The Russians have made some plotting progress, so we are surging security assistance to Ukraine. You've seen us do that in the last week. You're going to see additional packages coming in coming days to make sure that Ukraine can succeed on the battlefield, but just as critically, that if and when President Zelensky is ready to negotiate some sort of end to this war, that he can do it from a position of strength.
And when it comes to Syria and the region, how does this impact everything going on?
A stable, secure, well-governed Syria can actually make a huge difference throughout the region in the Middle East. So we've seen what an unstable, insecure Syria, ungoverned Syria can mean, particularly because terrorist networks try to take advantage of that. I mean, why do we have almost 1,000 troops in Syria right now? Certainly they're not there at the invitation of the government. They're there because ISIS has been trying to take advantage and exploit ungoverned spaces there. So a Syria which is whole, and that meets the aspirations of its people, that's secure and it's stable, can make a huge difference in the Middle East. And if you're Iran right now, and you're waking up, and you're looking at what you once saw your influence in the Middle East and seeing what it is now, you have to be pretty disheartened. Your axis of resistance is dramatically weaker now. Nasrallah's gone, Sinwar's gone, and now Assad is gone. And that is a direct result not only of the poor decision-making that Iran and Iranian leaders have made, but it's also, again, an outgrowth of a various sort of very collaborative, cooperative, and multilateral foreign policy that President Biden's been executing.
And turning now to the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Police in Pennsylvania today arrested a person of interest in the killing. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione was taken into custody in Altoona, Pennsylvania on firearms charges. That's around 2 hours east of Pittsburgh. Police say that he is being questioned in the shooting of Thompson outside a Manhattan hotel last week. Our Anna Schechter has been following this case and joins us now. Anna, this has been the manhunt that has gripped the country. How did authorities actually find this man, and what do we know about him?
Well, Caitlin, it was really thanks to somebody who was there at a local McDonald's who saw him inside the McDonald's. He was eating a meal and who said, you know what, that looks like the person that I've seen on TV, and called 911 and got local police to come immediately. They immediately apprehended him, brought him to the local police department that was not far away, and found on his person a ghost gun with a silencer. They held him there on charges of illegally being in possession of that firearm. They also found a jacket that matched the jacket that the suspect who carried out the attack was wearing. He also had a fake New Jersey ID, the very same one that the person of interest checked into the hostel up on the Upper West Side with. So all of these things are making law enforcement very confident that they, in fact, do have the right person.
And this manhunt went on for several days, and it just, baffles the mind how someone could, do this in New York City, and it takes so long for someone to find him. Did authorities give any indication about why it took so long to identify this person?
Well, officials tell CBS News that they're not that surprised it took so long. He was wearing a face mask for almost the entire 10-day period that he was in New York City, which actually really helped him avoid detection because facial recognition did not provide a positive identification on any individual. So that was a challenge for law enforcement. Once he was able to flee on his bicycle and get onto a bus departing out of New York City, that became a much more complex environment because they didn't even know which bus he took. He was smart in covering his tracks. He did not use a credit card. He paid for everything in cash. He had fake IDs that he was using to disguise his identity, and it worked for about 5 days. He made a few mistakes, like during that flirtatious exchange with the clerk at the hostel. He pulled down his face mask, so that was one mistake. And then again, just being in a McDonald's, he might have 5 days later started to get comfortable thinking that he was in the clear, order a meal and sit down and actually eat it in this fast food restaurant. And that was ultimately what brought law enforcement to him.
Amazing to think after all of that, caught in a McDonald's of all places. So where does the investigation go from here now that they have a person of interest?
Well, we are actually still at the beginning of this. So the next phase of the investigation begins now. They still do not have the murder weapon, so they are going to be looking for that. That's important. Looking towards motive and putting together this timeline so that a prosecutor can bring a case. That's all going to be happening now. DA Bragg has been working hand in hand with the NYPD since last Wednesday, 5 days ago. So that has already been in play, but that will continue. The motive, interviewing his family members. My reporting indicates that he had not been in communication with his family over the last 6 months. But he's such an unusual person of interest. In a case like this, he was valedictorian of his high school, prep school, went to University of Pennsylvania, graduated with a master's degree in computer science. He had a focus in artificial intelligence. This is a highly intelligent individual who, from his social media posts, appears up until relatively recently to have had an active social life, or at least that's what it looks like on social media.
It's just a fascinating case, and as you say, the investigation is really just beginning. Anna Schechter, you have been all over this for us, and I know you will continue to, so we'll look forward to your reporting. Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
And over the weekend, we got a look into how Trump could lead on day one on his return to the White House. Our Ed O'Keefe is in West Palm Beach tonight with more on the Trump transition. You're watching America Decides.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Yeah, boy! It's gonna be a ride. Sunshine down.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
How fast do you think you were going? 195 miles an hour. This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original, 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I'm a voracious consumer of information and constantly curious. I want to know the basic facts of every issue and to press into the heart of the matter. Information is the currency of democracy, and that's what we bring to the table every Sunday.
When you need your sports news all the time,
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights
What a finish at the final round of play.
and in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone,
This could happen to anybody.
and sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
And welcome back to America Decides. President-elect Trump is laying out his views on everything from immigration to the economy. During an interview on Meet the Press this Sunday, he said he'd launch sweeping changes on day one. Our Ed O'Keefe joins us now from West Palm Beach, which is the headquarters of the Trump transition. Ed, this was Trump's first television interview since winning the election. I'm wondering, walk us through what the main priorities he laid out for day one, which is, less than 2 months from now.
Yeah, priorities or headlines, either way you put it, Caitlin. A lot of news made in this thing. For example, he suggested tariffs are still on the table, but couldn't rule out the possibility that prices on everyday goods bought by Americans might go up, said he couldn't guarantee that. He says he won't allow Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to do much of anything to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security as they go about trying to find efficiencies and cost savings across the federal government. Touching those entitlement programs would potentially come up with billions, if not trillions, in savings over several years. But the president-elect understands that's a political non-starter. He says he's going to push for the Trump-era tax cuts to be reinstated. They expire in about a year or so. Said he'll pardon most, if not all, of those charged or still facing charges regarding January 6th, and says he won't go after his political opponents like the outgoing President Biden, which is perhaps a sign to those that are worried about that he's at least trying to seek some a more conciliatory tone, saying that if there's any retribution, it'll come through the successes that he expects to have as president.
And Ed, a lot of headlines there that you laid out. He also said that he wanted to end birthright citizenship through executive action. Let's take a listen to exactly what he said.
If somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need two, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action.
All right, so Ed, the immediate question coming from that is, can he actually do that?
No, because it is an amendment to the Constitution, and it would require another constitutional amendment to reverse it. So he also said he would take this potentially to the states, which is plain English for try to get enough of them to reverse the amendment that allows for this and then potentially have it go away. So that's a pretty tall order. For him to suggest that he would want to do that through executive order, you heard him say there, we'll see. That may have less to do with the idea that he believes he can do that, but more just that it was brought up in his presence and he didn't have a good answer for it other than, no, I can't do that. We'll see. But immigration remains a big focus of his, and we know that those preparing to serve with him in the administration are making big plans for mass deportations and whatnot. And he also suggested, for example, when asked about the potential for family separation, that if there are children in this country whose parents need to be deported, they can go with them. That's repeating what Tom Homan, his expected borders are, has said, which is, and he said it to 60 Minutes a few weeks ago, that if there's families that have undocumented people in them, the entire family can be sent back. That will ultimately go to a court to be considered, potentially all the way to the Supreme Court, because if those children are U.S. citizens, why would you be kicking them out of the country, which, of course, is another bedrock part of the immigration debate.
Yeah, some important context there. He was also asked about his approach to abortion. Here's a little bit of that.
Will you restrict the availability of abortion pills when you're in office?
I'll probably stay with exactly what I've been saying for the last 2 years, and the answer is no.
You commit to that?
Well, I commit. I mean, do things change? I think they change. I hate to go on shows like Joe Biden. I'm not going to give my son a pardon. I will not, under any circumstances, give him a pardon. I watched this, and I always knew he was going to give him a pardon, and so I don't like putting myself in a position like that.
All right, so Ed, how should we interpret that?
I think that was a bit of CYA, Caitlin. He understands the politics on this might shift, and he may face pressure from within his own party to possibly restrict abortion more. But for now, as he's saying there, leave it up to the states to decide, which was an answer that worked for him during the campaign as it kind of inoculated the issue that Democrats were trying to make over the course, especially the last few weeks of the campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Ed O'Keefe, thank you very much for your reporting. We'll see you soon. And Syria's political unrest is putting Tulsi Gabbard's past into focus. Coming up, why Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence has a complicated history with Syria and the now fallen Assad regime. You're watching America Decides.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Let 60 Minutes take you on a private tour of the National Archives.
So there may be treasures like this buried in boxes.
Historical secrets from America's past.
So this is original from 1778?
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places. Bright, shiny faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with a neighbor.
Hey.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
CBS Reports goes deep into Mexico.
What is your role in the Sinaloa cartel?
To find out why the cartels keep getting stronger and wealthier.
This is a war, but we're not fighting it. Our citizens are dying.
Funding Cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Do you think Assad is our enemy?
Assad is not the enemy of the United States because Syria does not pose a direct threat to the United States. Whether it is Syria or any of these other countries, we need to look at how their interests are counter to or aligned with ours.
Are Assad's interests aligned with ours?
What are Assad's interests?
Assad seems interested in the slaughter primarily of his own people.
Those statements made by Tulsi Gabbard more than 5 years ago are putting her under the spotlight today as she meets with senators on Capitol Hill to drum up support as President-elect Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence. The former Congresswoman is also drawing renewed scrutiny for her 2017 visit to Syria to meet with Bashar al-Assad, who fled the nation yesterday after rebel forces seized the Syrian capital. Our Scott McFarland is on Capitol Hill for us tonight. Scott, good to see you. So tell us a little bit about who Gabbard is meeting with on the Hill today, and how is that trip to Syria and her comments about Assad playing? Are they having any impact on her confirmation?
Yeah, Caitlin, she is following the path of some of the other nominees, starting off with Trump's loyalists in the U.S. Senate, those who have unequivocally and consistently backed what Donald Trump says and what Donald Trump does. So she met with senators from Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Iowa today. No surprise there. We pressed her as she walked down that hallway about her thoughts on Assad's fall in Syria. Because of those allegations, she is close to Assad or has supported Assad. She walked past without answering. When she came back out, we asked her other questions, and she answered in a way that didn't directly respond to the issue of Assad, just saying that she supports what Donald Trump says about Syria and about Assad. She will no doubt be asked these questions during these one-on-one meetings. But, Caitlin, the premise here remains the same, whether it's the defense secretary nominee, the FBI nominee, or this intelligence nominee. She is beginning with the political low-hanging fruit, the people who are always consistently supportive of Donald Trump and are likely to support most, if not all, of his nominees.
And making another appearance on Capitol Hill today is Kash Patel. He's another one of Trump's more controversial picks, but also a top loyalist of his. Where does support for him stand at this point to be FBI director?
Yeah, he's auditioning for a job that doesn't have an opening right now.
Right.
The FBI director position is filled with a Trump appointee, Christopher Wray, who is to serve until 2027. Now, Kash Patel, before he even took a meeting today, got a big boost of support. Chuck Grassley, the incoming chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who will oversee confirmation processes here, issued a letter to Christopher Wray saying Wray should stand down, that he's been disappointed in the FBI's performance, which would open a door for Kash Patel to get that job. Kash Patel also meeting, though, as the day concluded here, with those Trump loyalists in the U.S. Senate. Not a dissenting voice about Kash Patel from any of those he met with. That would include John Cornyn of Texas, who walked out of that meeting you're seeing on your screen and told me that at this point, Kash Patel appears to be ready for the job, and that if the job is open, there's no indication of opposition, at least not yet, to Kash Patel. But to be clear here, Kash Patel comes in with a lot of baggage for Democrats. He was there perpetuating Donald Trump's baseless claims about the 2020 election, made some provocative moves up the ladder in the final days of the first Trump presidency. Democrats are ready to question him, saying that he is a loyalist to Donald Trump and will not be a loyalist to the FBI itself or the Department of Justice. We'll see if that criticism gets anywhere. But the day concluded here, Caitlin, with no dissenting voices in the Republican Party, at least not outwardly, about Kash Patel.
That's interesting, Scott. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about this interview that Trump did with NBC over the weekend, his first interview since his election, at least on television. He talked about this campaign promise to pardon January 6th defendants. I want to play a little of what he said.
Look at everything. We're going to look at individual cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day.
Now, Scott, I know you've been covering these cases very closely. Where do they stand now, and what does that mean for those who have already been convicted?
There's a lot to unpack in what Donald Trump said about January 6th yesterday, and if you look into the subtext, there's a lot of news there. First of all, that he'd move on the first day shows the urgency with which he is moving with something we're not sure is publicly popular. There are 1,500 plus January 6th defendants, some of whom, hundreds of whom, are accused of assaulting police, some of gassing police that day. But what Trump also said to meet the press yesterday is that one of the rationales he's bringing to this is that those people, in his words, have been locked up for years in a bad place, references to jails or prisons. Those who've been locked up for years are not the misdemeanor defendants or those who were nonviolent. Those who've been locked up for years and face the prospect of years more are those who assaulted police. And if he is talking about pardoning those top-line defendants, it would indicate he may be considering pardoning all of the January 6 defendants, not some. He's never specified if it's all or some, and there could be any number of political ramifications to that choice, Caitlin, but also any number of people would say if you pardon everybody for a violent insurrection, you are just wedding the prospects of future political violence.
Indeed. Well, Scott MacFarlane, thank you for covering it all for us tonight. We appreciate it.
But we are going to get rid of Obamacare. I will never stop. One vote. I will never stop.
What a difference 8 years makes with Obamacare still here. Does the president-elect have a plan to take on health care this time around? You're watching America Decides.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
That desired farm, it's a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I can see clearly now.
Clearly, CBS Mornings.
Weekdays on CBS.
Yeah!
Tony, coming?
No, I'm going to stick around for an hour.
CBS Mornings Plus with Adriana Diaz and Tony DeCopel, right after CBS Mornings.
It's just like mornings.
Plus fun.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
These 7 miles of tunnels were the secret storage site for fuel for the Navy's Pacific Fleet in planes.
So this is one of the tanks.
Oh my gosh.
What happened 20 stories below ground is a story for 60 Minutes.
This thing that was a lifeline for the fleet is a threat.
That's right.
I'm Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours, and of all the cases I've covered, this is the one that troubles me most. Listen to Murder in the Orange Grove, the troubled case against Crosley Green, wherever you get your podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Sunday morning, a visit with the Wayans at Papa's house, plus affairs of state with the diplomat, and in praise of pigeons. Listen for the trumpet.
Repeal and replace. That 2016 message to overhaul the Affordable Care Act helped guide Donald Trump to the White House. Nevertheless, when pressed on his health care policy over the weekend, the president-elect was unable to give specifics about a path forward.
Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
Yes, we have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain. We have the biggest healthcare companies looking at it. We have doctors. We're always looking because Obamacare stinks.
Let's bring in our political panel. Joel Payne is a CBS News political contributor and a Democratic strategist, and Matt Gorman is a Republican strategist and served as a senior advisor on Senator Tim Scott's presidential campaign. Gentlemen, great to see you both here. Matt, I want to start with you because the president-elect has a lot to do on day one. Do Republicans want to be talking about making changes like that to health care?
No, I don't think Trump does either, right? This was the same thing he fell into when he was elected the first time, right? They felt like they had to do Obamacare first. If you talk to the Trump team afterwards, they wish they'd done either taxes or infrastructure first. I think they're not going to fall into that same trap again. Because again, his whole first 2 years in the 2018 midterms were defined by health care. I think this is something he doesn't really want to do, and I don't expect them to follow through on it.
I mean, it seems like Democrats would invite that kind of conversation to be able to run against it.
Yeah, I mean, but this is who Donald Trump is. This is who Republicans are. Like, you know, it reminds me actually of after George Bush won re-election back in 2004. It was a little bit of a bait and switch, right? He kind of ran on one thing and then decided to like go after Social Security and Medicare. And I do think that if Donald Trump and Republicans try to go after something like the Affordable Care Act, or if they do unpopular things, they'll be penalized for it. Again, they have to read what the American people were telling them during the election the appropriate way. If they read it as American people want us to go far to the right, they want us to do a bunch of unpopular things, they're going to have an unpopular presidency. He has a choice if he doesn't want to do that. And I think it'll be interesting to see how he chooses to govern, if he chooses to govern.
And obviously another huge issue in this election was immigration. There was broad, I would say, majority support in our polling for mass deportation. But Matt, in that interview over the weekend, Trump talked about ending birthright citizenship. Is that something that Republicans should entertain.
Well, there's even a question of whether he can do it without a constitutional amendment, which would be a lot of lift of political capital, right? As you said, there are immigration things he can get done both by executive order and through congressional action that are fairly popular and can be a relatively easy lift, or at least go along with the popular opinion stream. Birthright citizenship, I mean, I remember talking about this with Scott Walker when he ran for president in 2015 when I was on Jeb Bush's campaign. That was an issue back then. I think there is certainly, I'm not sure if there's political capital or the will among even the party to have a constitutional fight for birthright citizenship. There are other things he can do, far more effective, far more popular.
Yeah, I mean, the question of whether he can do it, obviously, is kind of the most important one. For Democrats, I mean, are there incentives to work with this administration on immigration issues, or do they feel like they don't want to engage and that the president-elect can do things unilaterally?
I mean, Kamala Harris ran on Jim Lankford's immigration bill. I still think that is essentially Democrat starting point, so I would see no reason why they wouldn't want to work together on that. But it's interesting. Over the interview over the weekend, the thing that I took from it was Donald Trump saying, I can't promise that people's prices won't go up or that people won't see a hit to their bottom line when I'm president because of this crazy thing I want to do with tariffs. And we're talking about immigration here. And I do think that, it's interesting when you're thinking about how Trump is going to govern here. Is he going to govern in a way that's actually going to negatively impact the lives of the American people? It's easy to talk about, I want to do all these things in terms of mass deportations. I want to do this aggressive tariff policy. But, I mean, gosh, if I'm a Republican, I'd be concerned about people experiencing pain at their pocketbooks. He's being handed a really strong economy. I don't know if he wants to screw that up, similar to how he did, 8 years ago or 4 years ago in 2016.
I think if he was handed a strong economy, it'd be President-elect Harris right now. I don't think it's as strong as you say, but I will say this. I think what he is setting the terms of the negotiation, right? He's extremely comfortable at a negotiating table. And as we saw with how Trudeau and Sheinbaum both acted in relation to his tariff threat, Trudeau immediately went down, met face-to-face. I think they started off on a better foot. I think Sheinbaum boxed herself in with this kind of very chest-thumping letter.
She didn't commit to do anything.
She absolutely did. It was a very antagonistic letter where Trudeau got face-to-face with him, got him in a room.
He started a fight to get someone to agree to policy they already are executing.
Again, I think what you wanted to do if you're Trudeau, you want to get face-to-face, and Trump wants to get the best deal possible. By kind of starting off on a bad foot and by having House Democrats align with her, it starts her in a bad foot as well in terms of the negotiation with this.
So there is this question of, Trump being kind of handed a mandate to address these issues that you're talking about, the economy, immigration. But at the same time, he's also talking about things like pardoning January 6th defendants. Is that a conversation that should be had among Republicans? It was talked about a lot on the campaign trail.
I think two things can be true. Number one, I think he's far more effective in going in on immigration and the economy. I think that, and I think also, if you're talking about 2020, I said this about Democrats and Republicans, nowadays you're losing. However, I will say this. In light of the Hunter Biden pardon, it's a lot easier to make those sorts of arguments because the norms in a lot of respects we had the Hunter Biden pardon for crimes he wasn't even convicted of. We're talking about preemptive pardons currently before Biden leaves office. It makes it so much more palatable, not among Republicans, but also in terms of norms to start now pardoning January 6th.
I agree with
that. Kind of open the door.
I agree on both points. I agree that if you're talking about the past, you're losing, and I would advise Trump and his team to consider that. I would also say, too, again, it's a matter of priorities. If you've told the American people, I'm going to be focused on your problems, the things that matter to you, making your life easier, and then you spend time political retribution coming right off the bat, that's not going to send a good message starting a second Trump presidency. All
right, less than 2 months to go before inauguration and day one. Plenty to talk about until then as well. Thank you both for being here. We appreciate it. As many Syrians celebrate the end of the Assad regime, there are new hopes for missing American journalist Austin Tice. Next, his brother and sister join us with more on his disappearance outside Damascus. You're watching America Decides.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows
We need to step up and help them.
and a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Let 60 Minutes take you on a private tour of the National Archives.
So there may be treasures like this buried in boxes.
Historical secrets from America's past.
This is original from 1778?
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 Hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places. Bright, shiny faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with a neighbor.
Hey.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
CBS Reports goes deep into Mexico.
What is your role in the Sinaloa cartel?
To find out why the cartels keep getting stronger and wealthier.
This is a war, but we're not fighting it. Our citizens are dying.
Funding Cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are mindful that there are Americans in Syria, including those who reside there, as well as Austin Tice, who was taken captive more than 12 years ago. We remain committed to returning him to his family.
And that was President Biden speaking about missing journalist Austin Tice. Tice was working as a freelance journalist in Syria in 2012 when he disappeared outside of Damascus. He worked for several news outlets, including CBS News. Tice's family believes that he is still alive and in Syrian hands. The Assad regime claimed it was not holding Tice and had no further information about his whereabouts. Well, 2 of Austin's siblings join us now, Naomi and Jonathan Tice. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
As we heard from the president, he believes that your brother is still alive. Your family does as well. I'm wondering what information you have that you can share to give you that kind of hope.
Yeah, absolutely. So President Joe Biden has consistently said that Austin is alive. And recently we were able to independently verify that with another source. And so we have full confidence that Austin is indeed alive, that he is in Syria, and that he is absolutely waiting to walk free.
And the news over the weekend of what happened in Syria, how do you think that impacts your brother's condition and anything that you know?
It really changes the dynamic, and it changes what's happening in this moment. It's a really unique moment over the course of the last 12 years that we've been advocating to bring him home. One of the things that we truly believe is in chaos there is opportunity. So this is the moment to reach out to any and all organizations or individuals to do anything in their power, anything they can do to help us bring him home.
And in your conversations that you and your family have had with the administration so far, are you confident that they can at least locate where he is?
Yeah, it has been very frustrating as we've been interacting. There is a lot of uncertainty, obviously, just generally in the moment. But we are really asking the current administration, President Joe Biden, to do everything he can, as well as the incoming administration, President-elect Donald Trump. We know that there are tools that they have available to them to bring Austin home, and so we are really asking that they use all of them.
And anything specific that you would like to hear or for people to do?
Right now on the ground, we do have, in Syria, we have had a campaign of information going out to the Syrian people, just informing them, letting them know, and making sure they're aware of Austin's situation. And so right now what we want is for that information to get into the right hands, the right person, the right moment who can assist in bringing him home.
And Jonathan, he's been in captivity since 2012, as we just said. What do you know about his time there, and what do you want people to know?
There's not a lot of information out there about the specifics of his time there. What we do know is that he is in Syria. We know that he has been in Damascus, and we do know that he is well taken care of, that he is healthy, alive, and ready to be home.
And Naomi, what do you want people to know about your brother?
I mean, I think Austin went over there with the purpose of sharing the story of the Syrian people at that moment in 2012. He went there with amazing conviction about the importance of journalism, of sharing news. And I just want people to understand that, like, this is such an amazing man who has done so much for our family, but also for the country as a Marine veteran. And I really believe that it's our duty to bring him home.
Just the internal strength that he has, and like Naomi was saying, his conviction and his desire to do good and do right and to see more right and good in the world. Growing up, he was always that pillar of integrity. And so it's, as an American, as a former Marine, as a journalist, it's always been his goal to shed light in dark and to make sure that good prevails. And so that's really the most important thing to know about him, is just that intrinsic goodness. And he's a treasure to the country, he's a treasure to our family. And there's a huge hole every life event that happens that he's not there.
Yeah, and to the extent that you're comfortable sharing, what has this been like for your family?
Yeah, I mean, it's been extraordinarily challenging. We're a very, very close-knit family. And
there's 7 of you. Right?
There's 7 of us, yes. And you know, all of us siblings are here in D.C. We've always been so committed to do anything, you know, as soon as we can for Austin, because there is, like John mentioned, a huge hole in our family without him with us. And so it's just been very challenging.
We do have, since he's been detained, we've had 5 different nieces and nephews as his be born. I've gotten married. My sister's gotten married as well. There's just so many life events that we wish that he had been here for.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, as he's been gone, there have been several administrations, as you mentioned, a new one coming in. I'm wondering, you know, you said that you were here for to advocate and lobby, and then, of course, the news over the weekend. I wonder what was going through your mind. What was kind of the first thing in your mind when you heard that Assad was pushed out of power?
I think really just recognizing that this is an opportunity, that this is something that is different than what has happened over the last 12 years. This is a chance for President Joe Biden and President-elect Donald Trump to do something different and to show that they are capable of bringing Austin home. We know that they are, and we just really hope that they utilize this opportunity.
We've absolutely seen the footage of detainees being released across Syria and returned to their families, and we're just really hopeful that that's going to be our story here.
Well, we hope that is your story as well. Naomi and Jonathan, thank you so much. We're thinking of your family and wishing you all the best and good news to come. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And Democratic governors gather in California to chart their path under Trump. Next, the steps they're taking and where we're hearing from potential 2028 presidential hopefuls in advance. You're streaming America Decides.
CBS Mornings Plus, clearly more news, more smart conversation.
More money-saving tips, more recipes.
More uplifting ways to get you on your way.
Plus, more sports, more weather.
Clearly, more CBS Mornings.
Plus,
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
I have a dorky look to me. I don't look like a criminal at all.
60 Minutes has reported on fraudsters, criminals, and hoodlums. But what this minor league thief was able to do surprised even us.
These are Yogi Berra's World Series rings.
A sports story you'll have to see to believe.
Need more time with 48 Hours? Go deep behind every true crime episode with first-hand accounts from 48 Hours Investigations.
Were you at all prepared for what happened in this case?
Shock is the word that comes to mind.
Get inside the twists and turns and get in on the case. Listen to Postmortem from 48 Hours, now available wherever you get your podcasts.
I think we're very cute.
Yeah, I think we need to send out a Christmas card like this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old?
70, yeah.
I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
Sunday morning, the Music Man, T-Bone Burnett, plus Ted Danson, and Martha Stewart with Just the Recipe. Listen for the trumpet.
I report from a lot of war zones, but I don't really take the same risks.
He's one of the bravest war correspondents 60 Minutes has ever met. But it's his relationship with his mother that you will remember. Plus, the robots making marble masterpieces in Italy.
As a kid growing up in Chicago, there was one horror movie I was too scared to watch. It was called Candyman. But did you know that the movie Candyman was partly inspired by an actual murder? Listen to Candyman, the true story behind the bathroom mirror murder, wherever you get your podcasts.
The CBS News original 60 Minutes opens its archives.
Pretty loose for a Friday night.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not my first show.
With moments you haven't heard before.
It's almost more fun that way when you have something to prove.
Listen to 60 Minutes, a second look, wherever you get your podcasts.
And welcome back to America Decides. Democratic governors are preparing for what could come from President-elect Trump's second term. Several of them attended a conference in Los Angeles over the weekend, and they're planning on which fights to pick with Trump and where there could be compromise. Aaron Navarro joins us now. And Aaron, good to see you. I know you were at this conference reporting on it. What were the governors talking about in terms of ways that they could fight back against this incoming administration?
I think the clearest thing that they pointed to was Trump's talk of mass deportations. While governors did say if they had federal assistance to help with undocumented migrants that have violent offenses or are convicted criminals, they would welcome that. They think his broader plan to deport all undocumented immigrants, they would fight back against that. I was talking to New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, of course, a border state. She talked about how she wouldn't allow her state police to comply, wouldn't permit licenses for detention buildings for anyone that's found to be held, and wouldn't give private information to the federal government, saying that it is unconstitutional with state and the U.S. Constitution. But as they talked about ways that they would fight back against Trump, they were cognizant of not seeming too much like a full-on resistance. They did invite some areas to find compromise with him.
Yeah, I'm curious what that would be, because they're also governors of states. I mean, there are going to have to be ways that they work with this administration, whether they like it or not. Did you see any areas of compromise? And
they admit that they're still waiting to see what comes down the road with this, next Trump term. There was talk of reducing personal costs financially, so anything in regards to the economy, they would take a look at working with Trump on, though. they are a bit weary of potential tariffs. I know Laura Kelly, the governor from Kansas, talked about reducing or at least looking at federal agencies and the size of them. That, of course, is something that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have been looking at, though she said she maybe questions if they should be the ones leading that effort.
And that's interesting, too, because Kelly and others are governors of red states, even though they're Democrats. When you look to conferences like these and gatherings like these, you're kind of always wondering who among them might emerge as potentially candidates in 2028. I know that's so far from now, but I'm wondering from your reporting what you've gathered about, whether there are any kinds of, leaders that might come from the Democratic governors, and also, what their prescriptions were for what happened.
I got the sense that they're still dissecting what happened in 2024. Just from talking to governors and also strategists and lobbyists that were there, they do look to the 2025 elections in New Jersey and Virginia, the over 30 governor elections in 2026 as a way to help build the party, maybe add or flip states, add people to kind of the leaders of the Democratic Party. But certainly, just from talking to people, not necessarily the governors who wouldn't necessarily touch this, but people at the conference, there are lanes that the 2028 candidate can have. One that was really the big opposer to Trump, one that found compromise. So that's going to be something that will impact how these governors act in the next 4 years.
Yeah, kind of look at those dividing lines within the party. Aaron Navarro, thank you very much. Good to see you. And that does it for us today. We'll be back with another edition of America Decides tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report on December 9th, 2024. I'm Lindsay Reiser. Tonight, a breakthrough in the search for a killer. Authorities detain a man in connection with the fatal shooting of the UnitedHealthcare CEO. How a tip from a fast food worker in Pennsylvania led to the arrest.